Hello, I'm Juliet Sargeant, and I'm really excited to be able to show you this garden because at the moment not a lot of people get to see it. This is the English Wine Centre. Come in. So this is an old Sussex farmstead, so it's been here forever, but about 40 years ago it was developed into the English Wine Centre, which is a specialist centre for English wines when actually nobody'd ever heard of English wines. So about 13 years ago, this garden, which is just under a hectare, was designed by Roger Platts. And last year I was asked to come and help renovate it because it had been left almost derelict for a while. So the first plant I want to show you is over here on the walls of the old flint barn. So this is one of the old gnarly vines, and there are several of them around the garden that we've been pruning back and rescuing. And this one was absolutely covering this little annex. You couldn't see this door at all last autumn, and it was dripping in the most delicious grapes, seedless grapes. But myself and the gardeners were the only ones that got to taste them. So I have to say, when the garden reopens, we'll have to share the grapes with other people. So you can see what we've done. We've been quite brutal with this. We cut off all the sort of long, lanky branches that there were right back to the framework. And grapes don't mind that at all. In fact, they fruit much better if you stop them producing loads and loads of leaves. But there are lots of other things that we've been pruning in this garden. So if you come this way, I'll show you some more. I haven't actually spoken to Roger Platts about the brief and his design, but putting two and two together, what I think happened was that the English Wine Centre was also used as a wedding venue. So I think Roger's brief was to create an absolute crescendo of colour, interest, romance, probably in June and July, because when I arrived last year, that's exactly what happened. It was a beautiful, beautiful, if a little bit overgrown garden. But my brief is a little bit different. The clients that now own the property want to be able to have weddings here all year round, because I think the wedding industry has developed in the last few years and you can have weddings really from January to January. So I'm adding more colour, more interest throughout the seasons. These three fabulous apple trees have actually become known as the three witches by the gardeners because the pruning of them is turning into a mammoth task. If you look up here, you can see that there are all these sort of long, lanky shoots, and they're called water shoots. They're the result of somebody at some time being a little bit over enthusiastic with the pruning, possibly at the wrong time of year, and stimulating the tree to produce lots and lots of growth. And you can see that if we left these shoots, the trees would just lose their shape, they wouldn't fruit very well, and it would all be a bit of a disaster. So the wedding photographers are absolutely beside themselves when they see these trees, because of course they can imagine them covered in apple blossom with brides sort of leaning against the tree looking beautiful. This is a fantastic photo opportunity, and wedding gardens are all about the photographs. So our job is to try and get the three witches under control again. And it's a little bit late in the year for us to be doing that. We've had loads of other things going on in the garden, but fortunately we know the garden's going to be closed for another year. So what we're going to do is just carry on pruning these trees, get them back into shape, and we'll probably lose the blossom this year, but it doesn't really matter. As you can see, I am a big fan of spring bulbs because they just give you that wow that you need at different times of year. And if you think about it carefully, get to know the different types of bulbs, you can have a sort of succession of colour from January with the snowdrops right through to September, October with the cyclamen hederifolium. And I love tulips, just a blaze of colour. One thing to show you is these lovely leaves of a daffodil. Most people sort of worry and frown about daffodil leaves, because most of them, when they die down, they're a mess, and what do you do with them? Have to leave them for 6 weeks for the bulbs to replenish. But actually, I like working with jonquil daffodils because they have these thinner leaves and almost grassy like. But what's happened here is they've gone blind. There were only really 1 or 2 flowers on this clump. So what we're going to do is divide them up and make sure we plant them deep enough, feed them, and then hopefully next year we'll get the lovely flowers as well. And of course, you can't have a wedding garden without Exocorda macrantha, the bride, which flowers for a very short time really, but when it does, it's worth it. So this is the main lawn, and as you see, we're using bulbs to get lots of colour, and later on there'll be other things coming through to show you. The great thing about renovating an established garden like this is that you've already got the lovely trees, the structure, and it's a matter of just giving it a bit more pizzazz. This was another pruning project at the end of last year. This is the Rambling Rose Rambling Rector, which is an enormous thing, and we've actually got several on this relatively small pergola, so you can imagine the whole thing was just groaning under the weight of a very, very, very overgrown rose. So we pruned it back, got right back to the framework, took out some of the really old woody stems and decided which were the young ones that looked healthy and flexible enough to tie in. And you can see already it's producing lateral shoots and the buds are starting to form. I mean, Rambling Rector is just such a lovely, lovely white rose, really special. Unfortunately, it doesn't repeat, but if you're here at the right time, you can really enjoy it. This is where we've had some very, very overgrown plants to tackle. And it's great that we've got a year to deal with it, because we've been able to hack right back, which we wouldn't have been able to do if we were still trying to run it as a wedding venue. So here there's a massive honeysuckle which rambled its way right up into an overgrown Prunus lusitanica. So I cut it back a little bit. This was only really half of what needed to be done, but I decided I didn't want to be too drastic in case I killed the whole lot. But you can see that the honeysuckle is absolutely fine. It's coming back, no problem at all. And so, somewhere we can see, so is the Prunus lusitanica. You can see the shoots coming through. So what we need to do now is have another go at it and bring it into shape and actually decide where the honeysuckle is going to go. We'll probably take it along the fence. I think it's probably the best thing to do. And then here we had a really, really overgrown laurel, and this was actually too much for us to tackle, so we had to get the tree surgeons in to reduce this. They reduced this by, I think, probably by about a third height, and that's let in a lot more light. And the last thing to show you is this. We have got lots of piles of ash stumps because unfortunately there are a lot of ash trees on this property. Ash is very common in Sussex, and it varies. We had an arboriculturalist to do a survey in the garden, and they vary. Some of them are really quite sick with the disease, some of them aren't really showing much sign of it at all, but we were advised which ones to fell, and I'm keeping some of the stumps to have around the garden, and I've been told by the arboriculturalist that actually that's okay to do. With Dutch elm, you're supposed to burn the wood, not move it anywhere, burn it. But apparently with ash, you're okay to use it around the garden because it won't spread the disease. I will double check that, but hopefully we'll be able to use them as perches and stepping stones perhaps for children around the garden. But it's a sad thing to see them go, but we have to do what we have to do. So thanks for watching, and next time I'll talk in more detail about the colours that we've achieved here with the different bulbs and perhaps give you some of the varieties that we've been using.